I will announce in 4 minutes, Prabhuji.
Sure, Mataji.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Tonight, reciters are Amok Prabhuji will be reciting in Sanskrit, and dear Digit will be reciting in English from Canto 3, Chapter 25, verses 16 to 30. And at 8:40, there will be a bhajan singing, and Hemalata Mataji will be singing Dule Dule Gorachand Hari Gun Gai, and dear Orpita will be reading English translation of the bhajan. So thank you. Hare Krishna Muk Prabhuji. Whenever you're ready, can you please start with invocation 3 times? Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudeva ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। अहं मम विमानबुद्धैः कामलोपादिभिः मलैः वीतं यदा मनुष्युद्धम् अदुःखम् असुखं समम्।
When one is completely cleansed of the impurities of lust and greed produced from the false identification of the body as I and bodily possessions as mine, one's mind becomes purified. In that pure state, he transcends the stage of so-called material happiness and distress.
तदा पुरुष आत्मानं केवलं प्रकृतेः परं निरन्तरं स्वयं ज्योतिः अनिमानम् अखण्डितम्।
At that time, the soul can see himself to be transcendental to material existence and always self-effulgent, never fragmented, although very minute in size.
ज्ञानवैराग्ययुक्तेन भक्तियुक्तेन चात्मनं परिपश्यति उदासीनं प्रकृतिं च हतोजसम्।
In that position of self-realization, by practice of knowledge and renunciation in devotional service, one sees everything in the right perspective. He becomes indifferent to material existence, and the material influence acts less powerfully upon him.
न युज्यमानया भक्त्या भगवति अचिलात्मनि सदृशोऽस्ति शिवः पन्था योगिनां ब्रह्मसिद्धये।
Perfection in self-realization cannot be attained by any kind of yogi unless he engages in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for that is the only auspicious path.
प्रसङ्गमजरं पाशम् आत्मनः कवयो विदुः स एव साधुषु कृतो मोक्षद्वारम् अपावृतम्।
Every learned man knows very well that attachment for the material is the greatest entanglement of the spirit soul. But that same attachment, when applied to the self-realized devotees, opens the door of liberation.
तितिक्षवः कारुणिकाः सुहृदः सर्वदेहिनम् अजातशत्रवः शान्ताः साधवः साधुभूषणाः।
The symptoms of a sadhu are that he is tolerant, merciful, and friendly to all living entities. He has no enemies, he is peaceful, he abides by the scriptures, and all his characteristics are sublime.
मय्यनन्येन भावेन भक्तिं कुर्वन्ति ये दृढं मत्कृते त्यक्तकर्माणः त्यक्तस्वजनबान्धवाः।
Such a sadhu engages in staunch devotional service to the Lord without deviation. For the sake of the Lord, he renounces all other connections, such as family relationships and friendly acquaintances within the world.
मदाश्रयाः कथामृष्टाः शृण्वन्ति कथयन्ति च तपन्ति विविस्ताप नैतान् मद्गतचेतसः।
Engaged constantly in chanting and hearing about me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The sadhus do not suffer from material miseries because they are always filled with thoughts of my pastimes and activities.
त एते साधवः साध्वी सर्वसङ्गविवर्जिताः सङ्घतेषु अतिते प्राज्ञः सङ्गदोषाहराहिते।
O my mother, O virtuous lady, these are the qualities of great devotees who are free from all attachment. You must seek attachment to such holy men, for this counteracts the pernicious effects of material attachment.
सतां प्रसङ्गान् मम वीरिसंविदो भवन्ति हृत्कर्णरसायनः कथाः तद्धोषणाद् आसु अपवर्गवत्मनि श्रद्धा रतिः भक्तिः अनुक्रमिष्यति।
In the association of pure devotees, discussion of the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and the heart. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation, and thereafter he is freed and his attraction becomes fixed. Then real devotion and devotional service begin.
भक्त्या पुमान् जात विराग इन्द्रियात् दृष्टसुतान्मद्रचनानुचिन्तयन् चित्तस्य यत्तो ग्रहणे योगयुक्तो यतिष्ठिते रुजुभिः योगमार्गैः.
Thus, consciously engaged in devotional service in the association of devotees, a person gains distaste for sense gratification, both in this world and in the next, by constantly thinking about the activities of the Lord. This process of Krishna consciousness is the easiest process of mystic power. When one is actually situated on that path of devotional service, he is able to control the mind.
असेवयायं प्रकृतिर्गुणानां ज्ञानेन वैराग्यविजृम्भितेन योगेन मयि अर्पितया च भक्त्या मां प्रत्यगात्मानं विहावरुन्धे.
Thus, by not engaging in the service of the modes of material nature, but by developing Krishna consciousness, knowledge in renunciation, and by practicing yoga, in which the mind is always fixed in devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one achieves my association in this very life, for I am the Supreme Personality, the Absolute Truth.
देवहूतिर्उवाच काचित् त्वयि उचिता भक्तिः कीदृशी मम गोचरा यया पदं ते निर्वाणम् अञ्जसा अन्वाशवाः अहम्.
On hearing this statement of the Lord, Devahuti inquired, what kind of devotional service is worth developing and practicing to help me easily and immediately attain the service of your lotus feet?
यो योगो भगवद्भानो निर्वाण आत्मन् त्वयोदितः कीदृशः कति च अङ्गानि यतः तत्त्वावबोधनम्.
The mystic yoga system, as you have explained, aims at the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is meant for completely ending material existence. Please let me know the nature of that yoga system. How many ways are there by which one can understand in truth that sublime yoga?
तद्येतन्मे विजानीहि यताहं मन्दधीर्हरे सुखं बुद्धे दुर्बोधं योषा भवद् अनुग्रहात्.
My dear son, Kapila, after all, I am a woman. It is very difficult for me to understand the absolute truth because my intelligence is not very great. But if you will kindly explain it to me, even though I'm not very intelligent, I can understand it and thereby feel transcendental happiness.
हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण
Krishna,
कृष्ण
Krishna,
हरे 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 राम राम
Rama,
राम
Rama,
हरे हरे हरे
Hare
कृष्ण
Krishna,
कृष्ण
Krishna
कृष्ण
Krishna,
हरे
Hare Hare,
हरे हरे
Hare
राम
Rama,
राम हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण
Krishna
कृष्ण
Krishna,
हरे
Hare
हरे हरे
Hare
राम
Rama, Hare
राम हरे
Hare
हरे. Hare Krishna. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Amok Prabhuji and dear Didish, for the very nice recitation. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hi, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Amogleda Prabhu. And is it Digit Prabhu? Is that how you pronounce your name?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah,
Okay, thank you. I was just going to share my screen. Just let me know if you can see it.
Yes, we can, Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare
Okay,
Krishna.
thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. Please accept my humble obeisances. So glory to Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. It's nice to be back again after being on Yatra for about 3 weeks in different places. Varanasi, Prayag, Chitrakoot, Ayodhya, the beautiful temple of Ayodhya, of Sri Ramachandra, then Vrindavan, then to the other side for the pastimes of Lord Krishna in Dwarka, Porbandar, Somnath, where we went to different places. Specific places that we went to was organized by Navadip Chandra Prabhu from Bhaktivedanta Mana, about 20 devotees went. It's such a wonderful experience. So if anybody hasn't been to these beautiful places, Sally would recommend all of you go in there at least. As we understand from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the importance about pilgrimage. We see Lord Baladev just before he's about to retire from his journey, and also during the time of the Kurukshetra war, he went to the places of pilgrimage. And in fact, we're sort of continuing on the recitation between the different sages as well, who are also on pilgrimage as well, discussing about the beautiful topics of Srimad Bhagavatam. So today we're going to be reading from Canto 3, the status goes, Chapter 25, the glories of devotional service. The verses that we're going to be reading is 22, 23, and 24. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayan Namaskapcha Naram Chaiva Narottanam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Turiya Nasta Shubhadrishu Natya Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavata Mutam Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. So, verse 22. Mayanena Bhavena Bhaktim Kurvanti Yedridam Madkrite Tyakta Karmanas Tyaktva Svajana Bandhava. Translation. Such a sadhu engages in staunch devotional service to the Lord without deviation. For the sake of the Lord, he renounces all other connections, such as family relationships and friendly acquaintances within the world. Purport by His Divine Grace, I say Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. A person in the renounced order of life, a sannyasi, is called a sadhu because he renounces everything: his home, his comfort, his friends, his relatives, and his duties to friends and family. He renounces everything for the sake of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sannyasi is generally in the renounced order of life, but his renunciation will be successful only when his energy is employed in the service of the Lord with great austerity. It is said here, therefore, Bhaktim Kurvanti Yedridam, person who seriously engages in the service of the Lord and is in the renounced order of life is a sadhu. A sadhu is one who has given up all responsibility to society, family, and worldly humanitarianism simply for the service of the Lord. As soon as he takes his birth in the world, a person who has so many responsibilities and obligations to the public, to the demigods, to the great sages, to the general living beings, to his parents, to the family forefathers, and to many others. When he gives up all such obligations for the sake of the service of the Supreme Lord, he is not punished for such renunciation of obligation. But if for sense gratification a person renounces all such obligations, he is punished by the law of nature. So just recite the Mangala Charan prayers. Namagana Timrandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmalitam Yena Tasme Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mayam Tadati Swapatantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sagana Ladita Shivishikamitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangye Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhana Sata Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Ivacha Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare I also like to offer my respectful obeisances to my spiritual master, His Holiness Bhakti Swami Mahavishnupadaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Shrimati Bhakti Swami Tenamane, and to ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Mahavishnupadaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tenamane, Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pachayane, Nirvashesha Sunyavadi Paschachaya Adhyasitayane. Kindly seek their blessings and also the blessings of all the devotees who are listening, so that I may be able to say something which is pleasing and beneficial and truthful on the wonderful topics of the Srimad Bhagavatam, depicting the beautiful pastimes of Kapila Muni and his mother, Devahuti. And may I also understand and learn something from this and follow the instructions as given by Kapila Muni. So just going back to this particular verse. Such a sadhu engages in staunch devotional service to the Lord without deviation. For the sake of the Lord, he renounces all other connections, such as family relationships, friendly acquaintances within the world. So this is the quality of a sadhu or sannyasi. He's able to renounce everything, his home, his comfort, his friends, his relatives, his duties to friends and family. We, as being devotees of the Lord, we find that to become to that level of sadhu or sannyasi, it is a very difficult position to actually withhold. You've got to free yourself completely from any material attachments, free yourself from any material desires, free yourself from any illicit thoughts, free yourself from wanting any sort of prestige, fame, glorification. Your prime purpose as a sadhu or a sannyasi is to completely serve the Supreme Lord. And in doing so, serving the Lord, you're also serving your spiritual master, you're serving the devotees. What is the purpose? Why do people want to serve 100% to the Supreme Lord? Why not just take something what's possible, like 50-50 in your life? You may be happy with a beautiful home, beautiful car, beautiful family, beautiful job, beautiful facilities, kitchen, TV, everything. But what is it that actually causes one devotee to completely surrender themselves 100% to Krishna? What was it that caused Srila Prabhupada to take the instructions, simple instructions by his own spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when he told him that why don't you go to the West? You look like an intelligent person, and preach this Vaishnavism to the Western community because you can speak good English. But even though Prabhupada hesitated for about 40 years or so, but he completely detached himself, gave up his family, his business, which was always going up and down all the time, constantly. He actually detached himself from all his worldly goods, even all the facilities he had, his family, his children. At the end, as he was boarding the ship for the Jaladuta, he wrote a beautiful poem, Magana Tashine, when he actually lists, where's all my relatives? Where's all my friends? Where's my mother? Where's my father? Where's my children? Where have they all gone? All that is a list of names. And ultimately, that's what's going to happen, a list of names. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur also mentions, all his life he's been subjected to material activities. Of course, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is a very, very humble person. He won't be actually subjected to any material sort of activities. But in his beautiful poem, Amara Jivana, he actually mentions, all my life, I've been acquainted to material desires. When I see other people happy, I feel remorse. But when I see them suffer, I feel happy. Sometimes we feel that within ourselves. When we see somebody with a beautiful car, beautiful house, beautiful facilities, we tend to have a tinge of envy, a tinge of jealousy. What is it that they have that we can't get ourselves? But on the other hand, when we see them suffering, when they've lost their money, their house, their possessions, there's a tinge of slight sarcasm within ourselves, saying, he deserves it or she deserves it. But of course, we have to free ourselves from that kind of duality where we're subjugating our mind to unwanted thoughts, unwanted desires. And the reason why a sannyasi wants to surrender himself completely, 100% to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he knows what the material world is like. He understands what it is like to suffer in this material world, this constant cycle of material birth and death, 8,400,000 species of life. And he wants to extinguish this blazing fire of material existence. And how does he do it? By seeking the benediction and mercy of his spiritual authorities. So there's different types of sannyasis, one who may be detached but still has some desires, or one who is completely surrendered and utilizes his talents, his knowledge, his experience, his whole body, mind in serving the Supreme Lord. And that is called vairagya, completely detached, utilizing everything for the serving and the purpose of preaching the Krishna consciousness movement. We see even Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. I was just reading this article in the Bhakti Godhead to mention about how after the Goswamis, when they passed away, the generic descendants of the Goswamis, I think that's Narottam Das and so forth, in that sort of generation. Then what had happened, the Goswamis decided that they wanted to control all the temples that were established by the 6 Goswamis and other acharyas of that time. And it was so that the generation of family were only allowed to serve the temple. Nobody outside was allowed. And this went on for about 300 years. And Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur, and specifically his son, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, objected to this because they were causing everybody to pay a bit of money just to enter the temple. They felt that no one was qualified to be a Goswami, only those from the descendants from the acharyas of the time of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it's a very tight-knit sort of internal politics within the family sort of lineage, that they were able to control the temples of Vrindavan. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he preached extensively and explained that the Brahmana can be anybody who has the qualifications of serving the Supreme Lord, following certain rules, regulations. But this actually caused a lot of aggravation to the Goswamis. And they actually hired Gundas to actually attack Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. They even bribed a policeman to say that we're going to be attacking the sannyasi. Don't intervene or help us. But this particular policeman, he said, no, I don't want anything to do with this. And he actually reported this incident back to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he was trying to explain that the qualities of a Brahmana is not necessarily by birth, it's actually by qualification. Just like if you're a doctor, doesn't mean that your son or a daughter automatically becomes a doctor or solicitor or an engineer. It takes years and years of occupational practice, experience, knowledge, going for qualifications, studying, until you become qualified and you have the training, till you have the certification to prove that you actually a qualified doctor or a solicitor or an accountant, engineer. Similarly, we go through this Bhakta program, we learn the Bhakti Shastri course, Bhakti Vaibhava course, we follow the 4 regulated principles, no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication, no illicit sex. We chant 16 rounds, we follow certain rules, regulations, follow the principles of Gaudiya Vaishnavism to enhance ourselves. We may not certainly become at the level of sannyasi, but if we try our best to do as much as we can to please our spiritual master, to also to help purify ourselves in our own spiritual journey, and also by the association of the devotees, that we actually become more and more attracted to Krishna consciousness. But it's not so much the suffering itself that we want to eliminate, but because we have a genuine attraction to serve the Lord and his devotees. When you find that the sannyasi, even though he may be free from attachment, material desires, but still the influence of the material modes of nature is still there. The 3 types of suffering are still there, which we'll cover in the next verse. It's so important to understand that we actually try and have the qualifications of a sannyasi. We may not be fully detached. We may still have family commitments because we may be a family person. We may have a business. We may have certain obligations to earn money to keep ourselves in a sort of situation where we can pay for the mortgage, pay for the utility bills, all the other expenses that come in our life, as you know, the upkeeping of our children, family, etc. It'd be nice if we could all be detached, but then, of course, there has to be attraction for the opposite sex, because otherwise, how will the population grow into a way where everybody within the material world could come closer to Krishna consciousness? We can become sannyasi, completely detached, that's fine. But of course, we have to understand the qualities of a brahmana. As it mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, the humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision, learned and gentle brahmana, cow, an elephant, and a dog eater. So externally, he may see the different features of these different qualities of life forces, a dog, dog eater, an elephant, a gentle brahmana. But internally, he understands that the distinction is non-different, because he sees the super soul, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. And he understands that he's also part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Externally, he may distinguish and refrain himself from being too close to a dog eater, perhaps even a dog or a mlecha, because he wants to remain in a purified state. Just like we don't want to be influenced by certain bogus people in our journey, even whether it's some public advice or family advice or anything else. We want to ensure that we go to somebody who is qualified. And that's why within our Krishna consciousness movement, we've been very fortunate by the sampradaya that we follow. We have the opportunity to follow somebody who's within that disciplic succession, taking shelter of these qualified sannyasis, spiritual authorities. We also have the governing body commissioner, who actually ensures that the institution runs in the way that is actually be provided by the scriptures as given by the purpose of His divine grace, is the Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So what does it also mean? A sannyasi does not detach himself just externally, but he also detaches himself internally. His thoughts, his senses, his mind is completely controlled. As we understand, once again in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna tells Krishna, for the mind is turbulent, obstinate, very strong, and very difficult to control. It's far easier to control the wind than it is to control the mind, because the mind is always flickering, wandering from one place to another place. We have thousands of thoughts every few seconds in our life. But Krishna says, wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the selves. And so that is our position, that we must try and bring our mind back to the focus of serving Radha and Krishna and his devotees. And the best way to do that has always been in the association of the devotees, always constantly reading the scriptures as given by the authorities, always following in certain rules and regulations that enhances us and protects us in our spiritual journey, doesn't degrade us in any way. So the sannyasi, he has total renunciation, that's called vairagya. He renounces himself. Sometimes you may see a sannyasi or a guru with a laptop or a mobile phone. You may think, well, why has he got some material sort of items with him when he's supposed to be completely detached, he's supposed to be completely spiritualized? You have to understand that in the day of modern society now, everything is done by computers. Everything is done by the, by using computers, by mobile phones, to even make phone calls from one place to another place. The computer is a wonderful thing too. Like, for instance, I'm actually able to display this particular database, the verses, to all of you. Otherwise, we would have to be together in person, just like Zoom we're on at the moment. Just before COVID, how did we all meet with each other? We had to come to the temple, come to a sangha, go to somebody's house for a program. But here we've got this facility where we can actually utilize certain benefits within the computer, where we could facilitate this preaching of Krishna consciousness. So similarly, as sannyasi, we mustn't think that just because he's got the latest state-of-the-art laptop, who knows, some disciple may have given that particular laptop to him because he sees him as a Kshatriya, spiritual warrior within a Sampradaya to carry on and push in this movement. And if it helps him communicate with other devotees within the congregation, within the temple authorities, then so be it. You know, we can't carry on sending smoke signals like in the olden days, or by using like ticker tapes or something like that. We have to move and advance with times, just like when we see the temple, it's beautifully decorated, and the lighting may be there using state-of-the-art technology. It's not to say that we're using that technology for material satisfaction, but everything belongs to Krishna in the first place. So if it's used in the purpose of Krishna, sure, why not use it for service of Krishna? Whether it's a beautiful car or traveling on an airplane, going from one destination to another destination, if it's used in Krishna service, then at least you're not taking on that karma unnecessarily. So equanimity, sannyas as equanimity, that's samadhan. So similarly, just like we see the different changes in the weather, the hot, the cold, the snow, the wind, the rain, in the Bhagavad Gita, it mentions matra spashas takantaya, shitashna shakadukada, gampa, nitya dhamsatiksha bharata. So as long as a person, one must tolerate the differences between the heat and the cold, they arise from sense perception, one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. It's just like the happiness and distress that we go through. They're like the passing of the summer and the winter seasons. So a sannyasi is in an equal state. He doesn't see the heat or the cold. He may feel cold and wear some warm clothes. Of course, why not? If he needs to keep himself warm to prevent himself from being sick, so be it. But at the same time, he doesn't take that advantage that, I need to have the top prestige coat. I need to have the best socks. I need to have the best gloves to keep myself warm. Or I need the best clothing in the summertime. No, he accepts whatever he's been given. Even if you see some of the spiritual authorities, they've got disciples who are millionaires. They could give them anything that they wanted to. And I've seen Radhanath Swami is wearing chadar and there's holes in some of the chadar. It's not like he's trying to show off being a mendicant or anything like that. He's very satisfied in what he has. From what I understand, I understand that he even sleeps on the floor as well, completely detached. He doesn't need like a 10, 12-inch sofa bed at all. He's happy to sleep on a yoga mat on the floor. And this is because of his desire to serve his spiritual master in a way that would also please him and also please his disciples, that they're actually seeing that he is actually a genuine sadhu or sannyasi. Similarly, when you see Tribhuvanath Prabhu, when we used to travel around with him doing preaching and Hare Krishna festivals, he was so detached. Some of his kurtas were torn. He hardly had any money. He hardly had any consuming any food at all. He was always relying on donations to use that money specifically for preaching Krishna consciousness. Other things that the sannyasi has, his self-mastery. He's completely conquered his senses and his mind, just like Rishikesh is the master of all senses, name for Lord Krishna. Contentment, tripatam, he's completely content in whatever he has. If he has hot food, cold food. Compassion and service, this is a wonderful quality a sannyas has. He's compassionate to all the living entities. Tunada Pistanetana, Tarupisashtana, Manina Manadina, Ketanya Sadari. He has minimum possessions that we mentioned earlier on. And importantly, he's very celibate as well, completely detached from any sexual desires or wanting to have any attention or women disciples for the wrong reasons. I hope that's quite clear in the qualities of a sannyas and a sadhu. Going to the next verse, text 23. Madhashraya kata mitsta shinvanti katayanti cha tapanti vividastapa neta mankata chetasha. Translation: engaged constantly in chanting and hearing about me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The sadhus do not suffer from material miseries because they are always filled with thoughts of my pastimes and activities. Purport by Srila Prabhupada: there are multifarious miseries in material existence, those pertaining to the body and the mind, those imposed by other living entities, those imposed by natural disturbances. But a sadhu is not disturbed by such miserable conditions because his mind is always filled with Krishna consciousness. And thus he does not like to talk about anything but the activities of the Lord. Maharaj Ambarish, it did not speak of anything but the pastimes of the Lord. Vacham Shiva Gata Guna Nirvanane Bhagavad Gita 9.4.18. Engage his words only in glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sadhus are always interested in hearing about the activities of the Lord or his devotees. Since they are filled with Krishna consciousness, they are forgetful of the material miseries. Ordinary conditioned souls, being forgetful of the activities of the Lord, always full of anxieties, material tribulations. On the other hand, since a devotees always engaged in the topics of the Lord, they are forgetful of the miseries of material existence. So this goes on describing further qualities about the sadhus and sannyasis. They are always engaged in chanting and hearing about me, Supreme Personality of Godhead. And because that they are constantly chanting and hearing about the Supreme Personalities, they do not suffer the material miseries because they're always considered to be absorbed fully in the pastimes, the chanting the glorious names, forms, qualities, and activities of the Supreme Lord. So sure enough, if there's snow outside, one person could feel very cold and could be complaining, oh no, it's snowing, I cannot take my car out, it's too icy, it's too dangerous to be full of traffic. But a sannyasi, on the other hand, I've seen myself personally, if you read the diary of Indra Maharaj, when he was traveling in Russia, if you read his traveling diary of a traveling preacher, it's quite amazing. It makes you cry. Just to give you an example, he went through like 2 or 3, 4 feet of snow just to go from one place to another place in Russia. It's about 8, 9, 10-hour journey. And this particular place he went is a remote village. And as he traveled, it's so cold, so icy. And he was thinking in his mind, why am I going to these places? There's only a handful of people. What is the point? Why don't I do something else? But once he got to know who these people were in Russia, he was absolutely astonished. He found that a lot of the family members who had asked him to come and preach and hold a program there were actually convicts or ex-mafia or some criminal warfare gangs. But they had come to contact with Krishna consciousness, and they gave up this these illicit activities, gave up any crime activities. They gave up any sort of facilitation in causing negligence to other people, causing harm to other family members, because they wanted to learn more about Krishna consciousness. So can you imagine, we sort of always complain about just going to Bhaktivedanta Mana when it's raining, when it's cold, but here somebody's traveling from one country to another country where he's been persecuted quite a few times. He's been banned from Russia a couple of times, but yet he was to persevere and preached his glories of Sankirtan movement to places in every town and village which may not be heard of the name of Krishna. And here, when he came to this village, he realized Srila Prabhupada had sent him there specifically so he could preach about this Krishna consciousness to this family who had changed from criminal warfare to devotees. Of course, I've not followed on the story from since then. That was many, many years ago. But certainly, if you'd like to understand the qualities of a sadhu, certainly if you read the pastimes of many of these acharyas, even like reading Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, you understand 40 years of struggle in India. And when he came to America, 2 heart attacks, 40 rupees in his coat pocket, he didn't know whether to turn left or right, who was going to pick him up. He was in a foreign land, he didn't understand. He couldn't understand why Krishna had brought him there. But yet through that suffering and that pain, that austerities, the penance that Srila Prabhupada went through, each and every one of us have become in contact with the Supreme Lord. And we're so fortunate that when we go to the temple, we have hot water, we have lovely plate of prasadam, we have facilitation of the beautiful lordships of Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda, Shri Shri Radha Landaneshwara. If you had lived in the 70s, if you go to New Vrindavan, when I was there a few years ago, they were telling me the stories when I first started New Vrindavan, And if you hear Satyananda Maharaj as well, he actually wanted to leave the Krishna conscious movement. Why? Because they were having bath in cold, icy water. They said that they had to break the ice just to have some water so they could have a bath every morning. And Satyananda Maharaj, I remember him giving this class, and he said that, I can't do this, I can't handle this, I want to leave this. And he wanted to just leave because he couldn't understand the level of austerities. Of course, I'm just diverting a little bit, but just explaining the qualities of these personalities who stood by serving the spiritual master constantly, and not, although they had that difficulties, their health issues and everything, that was they persevered somehow or another, and they still remain Krishna consciousness. And if you look at Satyananda Maharaj, he's such an amazing personality. When you go to any of his japa retreats, it really literally makes you cry when he explains about how to chant the holy name of the Lord in such a spiritual, profound way that sometimes we neglect even the basic things about devotional service and chanting, hearing properly. So here it mentioned about the 3 types of miseries. Does anybody know what those 3 types of miseries are? The Vedic names, those pertaining to the body, the mind, and those imposed by the other living entities?
Yes, Prabhuji, may I try?
Yeah, sure, please.
Adi Bhautik, Adi Devi, Devim, Adi Adhyatmik, something.
Sure, that's brilliant, Mataji. Do you know which one's which?
Yes, so the Devim one is the nature.
Yep.
The Adi Bhautik is by somebody else.
Yep.
And Adhyatmik is by your own mind or by your own self.
Yeah, that's it. That's brilliant. Well done. Thank you very much. Sometimes it is confusing when you remember the names. But yeah, sometimes when we understand Adibhotik is the body and the mind. Sorry, I had to be see, but I got confused. I had to write it down. It's the body and the mind. When you're able to control the mind and the body, all the difficulties that you're going through, that's considered to be Adhyatmika, Adibhotika. When you get suffering imposed by other living entities, other creatures, insect bites, all sorts of things, when you go to different places, that you always have some sort of insects coming in to attack you in some way or another. And then, of course, the natural disturbances are like earthquakes, volcanoes, tornadoes, posed by the devas, partly because the way we're running this material world, we're becoming very selfish, we're taking advantage of it, exploiting it, and because of that, we're getting the consequences of the suffering in the form of natural disasters. But then also a sadhu, even though he may go through these 3 sort of material miseries too, like the way the conditioned souls, but he always has his mind fixed on Krishna consciousness. So he does not really think about the suffering that he is ordained to. Rather, he sees it as a blessing by the Supreme Lord. Just like Maharaj Ambarish, he did not speak of any illness of anybody else at all. Constantly, as we remember the verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam, he uses his legs to go to the temple, he uses his ears to listen beautiful pastimes of the Supreme Lord, he uses his eyes to see the beautiful darshan of the Supreme Lord, his nose to smell fragrant flowers offered to the Lord, his tongue to taste prasadam, his whole body completely surrendered into serving the Supreme Lord. And even though he was cursed by the Vaishya Muni because he felt that Ambarish Maharaj had actually disobeyed him or disrespected him by just having a bit of water, just because Maharaj Ambarish, in one way, had to break his fast by a particular time because he had been fasting for many days. And he, at the same time, he did not want to break a fast, but at the same time, the Vaishya Muni and his sages were actually bathing and wanted to get ready and to be formally invited by Ambarish Maharaj. But when he tried to curse Ambarish Maharaj, what happened? Vishnu, who is the protector of all the devotees, he sent this Sudarshan Chakra to the Vaishya Muni. And of course, the story goes on, and in the end, he had to come back to Maharaj Ambarish and apologize to him. And he realized the great offense that he made. So a sadhu never makes any offenses to anybody else at all, whether it's a devotee or a non-devotee, because he sees, as I mentioned earlier on, the humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision. Okay. Somewhere along here, I mentioned about the ordinary souls. This is quite important. The ordinary conditioned souls, be forgetful of the activities of the Lord, are always in full anxieties and material tribulations. So because we forget about our relationship with the Supreme Lord, anything that happens to us, even if the most smallest thing, like today, I wanted to go for a morning program, and I started and got into my car, ready to go for day-to-day greetings, but my car wouldn't start at all. I got all these error messages. It was pouring down with rain, and I could have said, shall I walk it or not walk it? And in the end, I was able to chant my rounds inside my temple room, but I didn't take it as a burden, but I thought, well, this is Krishna's arrangement. And luckily, a devotee friend came, sorted out the problem, and now it's driving okay. But I see every obstacle, we should see every obstacle and anxieties and material tribulations that we have. What is the reason behind it? Maybe some suffering, maybe some testing that Krishna has, within ourselves. But on the other hand, if we see ourselves engaged in the topics of the Lord, then we don't really see the miseries, the material existence. Even if you see the rain, the cold, after being in India for 3 weeks of glorious sunshine, coming back to this cold weather, wet, windy, then you actually realize, well, we had the boast of the sunshine for 3 weeks. Now we just have to accept the rain and the wind and the cold as well, because ultimately they're all elements of the Supreme Lord. I am the light of the sun and the moon, and also he mentions that at the rain, from him. There's a particular verse in the Bhagavad Gita. I sent forth the rains, and many, many other things as well. He mentions about the different qualities and the elements of the weather as well. Oh, sorry. Just to go back on that previous verse. The question I wanted to ask you was, what is it that causes one to have attraction in spiritual life? Why is devotional service so important? Can anybody answer that question? Why is devotional service so important? It's not a trick question.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, Shravanti.
Devotional service take us closer to the Krishna.
Yes, wonderful. And anything else you can elaborate or Shabin? Is it better than doing?
Yeah, our main goal for human life is to go back to Godhead, back to home.
Yes. Yes. Thank you very much, Shabin. So I'm just going to share this beautiful verse. You may have come across it, Srimad Bhagavatam, Creation, Canto 1, Creation, Chapter 2, Divinity and Divine Service. This is a discussion between, it's actually one of the first instructions Sutta Goswami gives to the sages at the Namaskar forest. Sarve Pamsham Paro Dharmo Yato Bhakti Adoksaji Ato Ahi Toki Apari Tahata Yatatma Chaprasidati. Does anybody know the translation before I scroll down?
The devotional service should be unmotivated, uninterrupted.
Very good. You can read this first, Mataji, the translation.
Okay. The supreme occupation, dharma for all humanity, is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you so much. So as Ushabhataji mentioned, devotional service is to allow us to come closer to Krishna. And of course, to free ourselves from the spiritual existence and go to liberation. That liberation is already within us when we perform that devotional service. So that supreme occupation, dharma, for all the humanities, that by which man can attain love and devotional service to the transcendental Lord. So we may have so many occupations in our life. As I mentioned earlier on, you may be a doctor, lawyer, solicitor, could be a housewife, could be an engineer, car mechanic, accountant. But above all these occupations, which are just material designations, we have a supreme duty, a supreme occupation, and that is that love and devotional service unto the transcendental Lord. And it should be not motivated, it should be uninterrupted. Motivated meaning that you should not have that desire for doing this devotional service. So sometimes in the Bhagavad Gita we read that there's 4 types of pious persons who actually worship the Supreme Lord. Those who are in distress, who are always in distress, of course. Those who desire wealth, some fame, prestige. Those who are generally inquisitive, they see the world around us and they feel, wow, this is amazing. Who created this universe? Who am I? What is the purpose of life? And also there's the person who's searching for the absolute truth, understanding who Bhagavan, Paramatma, and Brahman is. But this particular supreme occupation is not based on sort of doing any humanitarian work. It's not based on doing any sort of benevolent work for some prestige or recognition. It should be unmotivated and uninterrupted. And followed on from that verse, there's another beautiful verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is from Madhya Lila, chapter 8, talks between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy. Krishna, this is verse number 70, chapter 8. Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavitamati Kriyatam Yada Yadikata Pilapyate Tachalolya Vapi Mulya Mekalam Jama Kavache Sukrite Lalabhyate. Now, once again, does anybody know this translation before I scroll down? Okay, here it is. Does anybody want to read this verse?
Yes, please, Prabhuji.
Yes, Shriji Mataji, Shriji Kishore Mataji.
Thank you. Pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness cannot be had even by pious activity in hundreds and thousands of lives. It can be attained only by paying one price, that is, intense greed to obtain it. If it is available somewhere, one must purchase it without delay. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so these are verses actually from Pajavali. It's actually anthologically compiled by Rupa Goswami. It's one of the 6 Goswamis. But this is one of the beautiful verses. I remember hearing this particular verse many, many years ago. I couldn't really quite understand it. Krishna consciousness cannot be had even by past activity hundreds and thousands of lives. So as I mentioned earlier on, you may be doing some benevolent service, you may be opening a hospital, you may be doing some humanitarian work. So you get pious credit for that, there's no doubt about it. Just like Srila Prabhupada mentioned about John Lennon, in his previous life, he was actually a very charitable person. And because of that charitable service and deeds they did, he became a very famous member of the Beatles. So what is it that pure devotional service? Even if you do pious activities, hundreds and thousands of lifetime, that doesn't gain that qualification of attaining or getting devotional service. It can only be attained by paying one price. And what is that price? It's not based on money, it's not based on wealth, it's not based on show or activities or anything like that. It's that intense greed. But that greed isn't a material greed, it isn't a material desire, it isn't some benefit for our personal gain. But that greed is spiritual greed. So if you see an opportunity to serve the Supreme Lord in any way, serving the devotees, serving the cows, serving the brahmanas, serving anything, you may see some litter on the floor at the temple. You know, you may say, well, this is not my service. This is the cleaner supposed to do that. We all have a certain responsibility. We can do that a little bit to please Srila Prabhupada, to please Radha Gokulananda, Shri Radhanandeshwara, many temples you are based at, because you don't want to see your home dirty with litter everywhere. So we're also doing that little bit. You could be given that opportunity. Hey, would you like to do this service for Krishna? I may have recalled a story to you previously. A friend of mine, his mother was very, very upset that his son was actually coming to the temple so often. I kept on asking him, why are you always going to the temple? Why don't you stay at home, do some studies, do some work, help the temple? One day she got the opportunity to serve Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa-san, clean it, dust it, polish it. And naturally tears came out of her eyes and she couldn't understand. And she realized that devotional service is not just an ordinary thing. It could be cleaning curtains, houses, sofas, cities, for anywhere. but it's only when it's actually connected to the Supreme Lord and his devotees, then that pure level of service comes to you. And Kripamoya Prabhu, he mentioned in his class last week as well, that he had some Jewish friends who came to Vrindavan for the very first time. They have their own religion, Judaism. And when he came in front of their lordship, Shri Radha, Shamasundar, tears naturally came out his eyes and he couldn't understand. And many of you, I'm sure, when you go for morning darshan and you may see it on TV and you hear the Govinda prayers, your hair stands on it, because that level of connection of pure devotional service is already imbibed in you. You must do whatever you can to serve the Supreme Lord. And earlier on, we were mentioned about Ambarish Maharaj serving the Supreme Lord in every way possible. And we know from the verse from Prahlad Maharaj, when he tries to explain to Hiranyakashipu about the processes of surrendering devotional service to Vishnu, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Shakyam, Atma Nivedanam, of which chanting in herein is the most important. Now I'm just quickly going to finalize the last verse. It is, sorry, look at that one, 24. It's a very long purport, but what it is, just for the sake of it, I've explained most of it in the first two verses that we were reading earlier on. Tadete sadava sadvi sarva sangha vivarjita sangaste shvatate prarityaha sangha doshahara hite. Translation of my mother, a virtuous lady. These are the qualities of great devotees who are free from all attachment. You must seek attachment to such holy men, for this counteracts the pernicious effects of material attachment. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Kapila Muni herein advises his mother Devahuti that if she wants to be free from material attachment, she should increase her attachment for the sadhus, or devotees who are completely freed from all material attachment. In Bhagavad Gita, 50th chapter, verse 5, it is stated who is qualified to enter into the kingdom of God. I'll just quickly read that verse to you. This is chapter 5, 15, the Yoga of the Supreme Person, verse number 5. Just for time, I'll read the translation. Those who are free from false prestige, delusion, and false association, who understand the eternal, who are done with the material lust, who are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress, and who, unbewildered, know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attain to the eternal kingdom of God. So those who are free from false prestige, delusion, false association, understand eternal, are done with material lust, are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress. So there's a lot of qualities that we have to free ourselves from, but it is possible. It is from Bhagavad Gita, 50th chapter, verse 5, it is stated who is qualified to enter the kingdom of God. It is said there, Nirmana Moha Jita Sangha Doshaha. This refers to one who is completely freed from the puffed up condition of material possessiveness. A person may be materially very rich, opulent, or respectable, but if he at all wants to transfer himself to the spiritual kingdom, back home, back to Godhead, then he has to be freed from the puffed up condition of material possessiveness, because that is a false position. I won't read the rest of the purport. There's quite a lot of purport, but for the time, just important, the last instructions by Kapila Muni to his mother, Devahuti, he said that you must seek attachment to such holy men. And we're very fortunate that we have such wonderful personalities within our community, and we should take advantage of them. Even if somebody is slightly more advanced, we should try and appreciate who he is and impart knowledge, or rather to seek knowledge from him. And at the same time, if you're sort of more senior to somebody else, give that knowledge to that somebody else as well, and allow that person to also become spiritually elevated. This way, we're also supporting each other in a way that allows us to go back to the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead via the spiritual masters and the spiritual authorities. Thank you very much. I've just slightly gone over time, but please accept my humble obeisances and forgive me for any mistakes I made. I'll pass on to Shriji Kishore Mataji.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for the wonderful class as always. Thank you. So now
Thank
we are
you.
going to have our bhajan. And today's beautiful bhajan is going to be sung by Hemlata Mataji, and the English translation is by Orpita, dear Orpita. So let me share the lyrics on the screen. The bhajan is called Dule Dule Gora Chand. So, Orpita, are you ready to read the English translation first, please, before Mataji sings?
Yes, Mataji.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Translation. The moon-like Lord Gaurachandra arrives in Vrindavan while dancing, swaying to and fro, and singing the glories of Lord Hari. The creepers adorning the trees of Vrindavan are overwhelmed with ecstatic love, and they are speaking about the glories of Lord Hari. Flocks of birds who live in the groves are singing the name of Lord Hari. Lord Gaura says, "Hurry, hurry." A female parrot responds, "Hurry, hurry." And then all male and female parrots start singing a loud chorus of the name of Hari. Becoming intoxicated by the holy name, the deer come forward from out the forest. The peacocks and peahens are dancing and frolicking in ecstatic love. Lord Hari is in his heart. Lord Hari is in his meditation, and he always chants in the name of Hari with his voice. Gaurachanda is intoxicated by ecstatic mellows and rolls around on the ground while singing Harinam. Arriving on the bank of the Yamuna river, he dances wildly while chanting Hari, Hari. Mother Yamuna becomes so ecstatic that she arises and comes forward to wash Lord Gauranga's feet. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Arpita, for the beautiful recitation. Okay, over to you, Hemlata Mataji, when you're ready. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, everyone. I'll start bhajan now. ढूले ढूले गौरा चांद हरि गुण गाई ढूले ढूले गौरा चांद हरि गुण गाई आशिया वृंदावने आशिया वृंदावने नाचे गौर राई ढूले ढूले गौरा चांद हरि गुण गाई वृंदावन तौरुलता प्रेम कहे हरि कथा वृंदावन तौरुलता प्रेम कहे हरि कथा निकुंजेर पाखी गोले निकुंजेर पाखी गोले हरि नाम सुनाई ढूले ढूले गौरा चांद हरि गुण गाई शौर बोले हरि हरि शारी बोले हरि हरि शौर बोले हरि हरि शारी बोले हरि हरि मुखे मुखे शोक शारी मुखे मुखे शोक शारी हरि नाम गाई ढूले ढूले गौरा चांद हरि गुण गाई हरि नाम मस्त होए हरि नाशी छेदे हरि नाम मस्त होए हरि नाशी छेदे मयूर मयूरी प्रेमे मयूर मयूरी प्रेमे नाचिया खिलाए डूले डूले गोरा चांद हरि गुण गाए प्राणे हरि ध्याने हरि हरि बोलो वदन भूरी प्राणे हरि ध्याने हरि हरि बोलो वदन भूरी हरि नाम गे गे हरि नाम गे गे हरि नाम गे गे रस गले जाई ढूले ढूले गोरा चांद हरि गुण गाई आशिया जमुनार कुले नाची हरि हरि बोले आशिया जमुनार कुले नाची हरि हरि बोले जमुना उठोले ऐसे जमुना उठोले ऐसे जमुना उठोले ऐसे चरण धोयाई ढूले ढूले गोरा चांद हरि गुण गाई ढूले ढूले गोरा चांद हरि गुण गाई हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा थैंक यू प्रभु थैंक यू माता जी
Hari Bol, absolutely beautiful. Thank you, Mataji.
थैंक यू माता जी
Okay, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, are you there?
Yeah, Hare Krishna. Thank
Thank
you. So
you.
beautifully sung. Thank you, Hamlata Mataji. So nice. And thank you,
थैंक यू
everyone,
प्रभु हरे
for
बोल
participating. Uh,
Are we going
I
to have some time for questions or reflections?
Yeah, if anybody wants to have any questions or anybody's got
Anyone?
any comments, please.
Prabhuji, I remember you used to do such beautiful service at the manor, taking photographs and videos. Do you still do that?
Mataji, since everybody's got mobile phones nowadays, we got a new generation of far more enthusiastic and far more professional devotees than I. But yes, I love taking photographs. I like taking because it captures a mood of the devotees, the festivals, of course, the beautiful lordship of Shri Radha, Gokulananda, Sitaram, Lakshmanarama, Shri Govindai. But also, it's like a historical sort of memory as well for all of us. Because if you think yourself, Sri Kishore Mataji, you've been coming for many, many years. We used to remember sitting in the bhajan when Vivekananda Prabhu used to sing on a Sunday evening. And
That's right.
those days were nice, quiet, easily manageable, wasn't sitting on top of each other and people pushing and shoving. And, you know, what it is, I do miss those beautiful days. I do miss those beautiful memories. But at the same time, Krishna consciousness is open to everybody, and especially now, more and more people are becoming more connected to their spiritual roots because since COVID, especially, I noticed that there's been a huge surge of people, not only here at Bhaktivedanta Manor, even at the other temples I've visited in India, they also mentioned the same thing, that the phenomenal amount of people coming to visit the temple is grown exponentially, which is very good as well. But at the same time, we just have to maintain that spiritual steadiness as well. So yeah, thank you as well. But you know, you've been maintaining this service for a long time as well, for doing the Chad group as well. And there's two other beautiful bhajans as well that I'll send you a text if it's feasible, if anybody's interested in singing those songs, if you pass that on. One of them is Amara Jivana, which was I mentioned in the class today by Bhaktivinoda Thakur about how he's used all of his life for doing mundane activities, you know, always in sense gratification. Of course, as I mentioned, he's just saying that, but he never was in sense gratification. But it's to give you an idea. Don't use your faggot of your life to come to Krishna consciousness while you're young, while you're youthful. Like Kalishika Maharaj says, let the sword of my mind be attached and entangled to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. We should always feel like that as well. So yeah, any other points or questions anybody wants to raise? No? Okay, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. May I have a quick question, please?
Yeah, sure. I'll try my
That's
best to
something
answer.
I'm confused about. So, you know, in Kali Yuga, it said it's not recommended that people become sannyasis. Is that correct? But yet we see so many sannyasis. Is it because then they want to preach? Is that why they become sannyasis?
Yeah, sure. So that's a wonderful question. I'll just repeat it for everyone else. So Mataji mentioned that in Kali Yuga, it's mentioned that one should not take up to sannyas because of the degradation in society as it is. But within Srila Cisco movement, he's actually introduced the level of sannyas, and so did his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. The idea was that many, many millennium years ago, it all started with Indra when he was trying to still during the Rajasuya sacrifice by, I think it's Prithu Maharaj. There was a special sacrifice that was being conducted by him, and then he tried to steal this beautiful horse for the Ashwamedha Yajna. And then in doing so, he actually disguised himself as a sannyasi, just so he could get some sort of favoritism to get to the yajna and then befriend Prithu Maharaj and then take steal the horse away. But Prithu Maharaj became very angry and realized what he did. Because he was in disguise of a sannyasi, Srila Prabhupada actually mentions in the purport that this is the reason why we do not ask people to take sannyas. And Indra was the reason the story Leela took place, because many people are disguising themselves as sannyasis, as babajis, as spiritual authorities, as some gurus as well, who can give you some sort of spiritual benefit. Srila Prabhupada warns us about such personalities. They're normally doing it for some fame or glorification or some sort of stage performers. But the way he conducted sannyasi, even though if you look at the way the sannyas was given to some of his early disciples that had only been in the movement a couple of years, like His Holiness Kirtananda Maharaj, and they wouldn't have had that full understanding of Krishna consciousness. I mean, even myself practicing for many years, I don't fully understand all of Krishna consciousness, but I do understand the basic of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. So Srila Prabhupada mentions that sannyas shouldn't be just been given lightly, because it has to be followed by certain rules, regulations, instructions, and for the purpose of preaching Krishna consciousness. if it's done, so you could just isolate yourself, go into the Himalayas, go in underneath a forest or a tree or something like that, then that's actually detaching yourself from the material world, but you're not actually giving anybody spiritual benefit. You're not giving that association to anybody at all. And similarly, it was mentioned that some of Srila Prabhupada's early disciples, they would go and see some of the Babajis in Vrindavan, and the Babajis would try and entice them to come and join them and tell them, look, what you're doing is wrong. You should be chanting all the time. And it so happened that they actually went back to Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was very angry, not because, the Babajis were telling them what to do, but the disciples, they've already accepted a spiritual master, so they should be starting to take instructions from other spiritual authorities too, because it's given the simple basic principles to chant the 16 rounds and following the 4 eggs. So sannyas is not really considered to be the ideal thing in the age of Kali, because it's the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. But if it's certainly there for preaching purposes and the qualifications are there given to you by a spiritual authority who can see you, just like at the moment, when you go through your first initiation or your second initiation, you're not just given beads just like that. You don't just follow 4 regulated principles, chant 16 rounds. You have to have a relationship with your spiritual master. Spiritual master is also going to accept you, which is more important than us accepting a spiritual master. Similarly, when you get your Brahmin initiation, you go through Bhakti Shastra course, you've got to understand the basics of Krishna consciousness. In sannyas level, it's like a 7-year sort of progression of time. And during that time, your service is to go preaching to different countries around the world, bringing about Krishna consciousness, bringing about books and stories and pastimes of the Vedic scriptures. In that way, if you're qualified after that 7 years, and there's a panel, GBC panel, who actually checks to see if you're worthy of that spiritual authority, then they would award you that sannyas level. So it's not just like by filling in a form or signing a document or giving a certificate. It's actually following a certain rules, practices for several years. And only then you could actually take that sannyas level, because in the past, just like initiated devotees, sometimes they get initiated and they don't really fulfill the duties they're supposed to follow in the vows. They don't serve the temple, they don't follow their spiritual master, they go astray, they start committing offenses, they start sometimes becoming distant from the Supreme, from the ISKCON institution as well. So I hope that sort of answers your question in a sort of nutshell sort of answer, Mataji.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other comments, or anybody else wants to correct me if I've said any mistakes? Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to be back again. And also it's so nice to read, because it allows me to go deeper and understand what Srila Prabhupada is actually saying in the purports. And if you are reading on a regular basis, I would also ask you to go deeper and find out more information on that particular verse that you're reading, so you're fully familiar with the verse. I know I could take up many 18,000 verses in the Srimad Bhagavatam, but certainly if you have the desire to be completely fully satisfied, the only cost is that intense desire and that greed, and one shall obtain it without hesitation at all. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, everyone. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitana pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you, Prabhuji.